Don't you dare touch that tray." The woman snatched it right out of the girl's hands. Then she wiped her gloves, slowly, like she'd just touched something dirty. "You people don't sneak into my line. Not on my watch." She stepped closer, chin up, eyes cold. "Section B. That's where your kind eats. Not here." The girl held up her student card. Steady hands, shaking voice. "Ma'am, I already paid my tuition. In full." The woman smiled, and it wasn't a kind smile. "With what money?" "Sweetheart." Silence. The whole cafeteria seemed to hold its breath. Behind the girl, a man froze mid-step, coffee cup still in his hand, jaw tight, eyes locked on the scene in front of him. That girl, the one being humiliated in front of 300 students, was his daughter, and in about 10 seconds, this woman was going to find out exactly who she was talking to. But to understand what happened next, you need to go back, 22 years back, to a cracked sidewalk in East Baltimore, where a 9-year-old boy learned what it meant to lose everything. Let me tell you who that man really was. His name was Marcus Reid, and the Baltimore he grew up in wasn't the Baltimore you see in postcards. It was the Baltimore where gunshots replaced fireworks on the 4th of July, where the hallway of his building smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. Every single day, for as long as he could remember, his father mopped floors at a hospital for 31 years, never missed a shift, never complained. His mother taught 3rd grade in a classroom with no air conditioning, using her own paycheck to buy pencils for kids whose families couldn't afford them. Together, they never made more than $42,000 a year. But every night, no matter how tired they were, Marcus's mother sat him and his older brother down at the kitchen table, and she made them read out loud, until the streetlights came on, until their voices got tired. That was the rule. Education first. Everything else came second. His brother's name was Malcolm, and Malcolm was the smart one. Everybody said so. Teachers said so. Neighbors said so. Malcolm wanted to be a doctor. He had the grades for it. He had the mind for it. He just didn't have the time. Malcolm was diagnosed with leukemia when he was 11 years old. He was gone by the time he turned 12. Marcus was 9, and he remembers standing in that hospital hallway, staring down at the same kind of floor his father mopped every single morning, and asking himself one question: why didn't anyone catch it sooner? That question never left him, not for a single day. At 18, Marcus enlisted in the Marine Corps, not because he wanted to fight, because he needed a way to pay for college without burying his parents in debt. 4 years of service, 2 tours overseas, a scar on his shoulder he still doesn't talk about. Then college. On the GI Bill. Biochemistry. Top of his class. And after that, a garage in Connecticut. A folding table. A used centrifuge. One obsession that never let go of him. Pediatric cancer treatment. The kind of medicine that might have saved his brother. If it had existed back then, that garage became Reid Therapeutics. Today, it trades on the stock exchange. A company worth more than $4 billion. Over 300 employees. More than a dozen treatments in clinical trials. Several of them already saving children's lives in countries across the world. Marcus Reid built every piece of it. With his hands, with his mind, and with his brother's name carved somewhere deep in his chest, where nobody could ever take it from him. 2 years ago, his wife, Vivian, collapsed in their kitchen back in New York. A brain aneurysm. She was 39 years old. By the time help arrived, she was already gone. Vivian had been a professor. She used to sit at that same kitchen table, grading papers late into the night, laughing at something on the television while she worked. After the funeral, Marcus couldn't cook in that kitchen anymore, couldn't sit in her chair, couldn't sleep in their bed. So he sold the house, and he moved. Just him and his daughter. Her name was Zora, 18 years old. The girl standing in that cafeteria line, holding an empty tray, saying absolutely nothing while a grown woman called her something no child should ever have to hear. Zora had earned her place at that university. Every inch of it. Top scores. A published research paper before she even finished high school. But she carried a secret nobody on that campus knew. Her father wasn't just a parent paying tuition. He was one of the university's largest donors. And his foundation had spent months quietly negotiating something bigger. A $12 million research center. One that would carry her mother's name forever. Zora never told a single soul. She didn't want the money to open doors for her. She didn't want anyone to know. She wanted to earn her seat in that room, the same way everyone else did. No last name. No safety net. Just her. Which is exactly why, when the trouble started in her very first week of classes, she didn't say a word to anyone. Not even to her father. The first time it happened, Zora told herself it was a misunderstanding. It was her second day on campus. She was still learning the layout of the dining hall. Still memorizing which door led to the library. Which hallway led to her dorm. She got in line behind a group of students, tray in hand. Excited about the salad bar she'd heard so much about during orientation. That's when a woman stepped in front of her. Middle-aged. Sharp eyes. A name tag that read, Director of Dining Services. Card. Please. Zora handed it over without thinking twice. The woman looked at it, then looked at Zora, then looked at it again. Longer this time. Like she was searching for something that didn't add up. This card doesn't look right. I'm going to need to verify this manually. Zora waited. 10 minutes. 15. Other students walked past her, swiped their cards, and disappeared into the dining hall without a second glance. Finally, the woman handed the card back, her mouth tight. It's fine. This time, Zora didn't think much of it. Not that first day. New employee. Maybe. A glitch in the system. Maybe. She grabbed her tray and found a seat, and told herself it was nothing. But the second week, it happened again. And this time, the woman didn't even check the card. Section B is where you'll want to go from now on. It's just easier that way. Zora blinked. Easier for who? The woman didn't answer. She just gestured, the way you'd wave off a fly, and turned to the next student in line. A student who happened to be white, and who walked straight through. No card check. No questions. No delay. Zora stood there for a moment, tray in her hands, feeling something cold settle in her stomach. But she didn't say anything. She told herself she was imagining it. She told herself it was a coincidence. By the third week, there was no more room for excuses. She was still 19 when she called her college roommate crying that first year. But Zora had learned early not to cry where anyone could see her do it. So instead, she started timing her meals around Patricia's shifts. She started eating quickly, quietly, sitting near the exit so she could leave the moment things felt wrong. She never told her father. And here's the thing people don't always understand about kids like Zora. Kids who grow up watching a parent build something out of nothing. She wasn't afraid of her father getting angry. She was afraid of something much harder to explain. She was afraid he would look at her differently. That he would see her as someone who couldn't handle a hard moment on her own. That he would swoop in and solve it with money or influence. And everyone on that campus would look at her and think, oh, that's the donor's daughter. That's the girl whose daddy fixed it for her. She had spent her entire life proving she didn't need anyone to fix things for her. Straight through high school, straight through every application, every interview, every all-nighter spent writing a research paper her classmates said was too advanced for someone her age. She wanted this seat to be hers. Earned. Not given. So when the isolation got worse, She carried it alone, when a woman named Patricia Sullivan started sending her, and only her, and a small handful of other students who looked like her, toward a separate counter every single day. She said nothing, not to her roommate, not to her friends, not to the one person who would have burned that entire building to the ground to protect her. She told herself it was manageable. She told herself it would get better. She told herself, over and over again, that this was just the cost of proving she belonged, somewhere on her own terms. But some things don't get better just because you stay quiet about them. Some things just get worse, week after week, until the day finally comes when they can't be hidden anymore. And for Zora Reid, that day was about to arrive faster than she ever expected, because on a Tuesday morning in October, her father was already on his way to campus, and he wasn't planning to stay in the boardroom for lunch. He was planning to surprise her. That Tuesday started at 6 in the morning, the way most of Marcus Reid's days started. A car to the airport, a short flight, a helicopter touching down on a private airfield just outside campus by 7:15. By 8 o'clock, he was sitting in a mahogany-paneled boardroom on the 3rd floor of the administration building, shaking hands with a row of university trustees, all of them smiling the practiced smiles of people who know exactly how much money is on the table. The meeting went well, better than well. The architectural renderings were unveiled first, glass and stone, a building that would carry his late wife's name across its entrance for generations. The numbers were approved without a single objection. By 10:30, the $12 million endowment was as close to finalized as it could be without ink on paper. Everyone shook his hand. Everyone smiled again. And at noon, the trustees began gathering their things, heading toward the faculty dining room, the one with white tablecloths and sparkling water and salmon served on real china. Marcus declined. He told the board chair he needed some air. That much was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. The whole truth was simpler, and somehow heavier. He hadn't seen his daughter in almost a month. Video calls, quick texts between meetings, but not her actual face across a table. Not since he'd dropped her off for the semester and driven away with his hands too tight on the steering wheel. He wanted to surprise her, sit across from her in that cafeteria, eat whatever she was eating, ask her about her classes the way a normal father does on a normal Tuesday. No assistant, no itinerary, just him and his daughter and a tray of mediocre cafeteria food. He didn't call ahead. He didn't text. He just walked down 2 flights of stairs, followed a hand-painted sign that read, Dining Hall, and pushed open a set of heavy glass doors. And that's when he heard it, a woman's voice, sharp enough to cut through the noise of 300 students eating lunch. You people don't sneak into my line. Not on my watch. Marcus didn't move. Not right away. There's a strange thing that happens to your body in a moment like that. A kind of stillness that has nothing to do with calm. Every muscle locks. Your own heartbeat becomes the loudest sound in the room. And somewhere underneath all of it, a single thought starts forming. Slow and cold. That voice, that tone, he'd heard it before. In different rooms. From different people. Aimed at him when he was young enough to not fully understand why it hurt so much. He knew exactly what that voice meant before he even saw who it belonged to. Then, he saw her. Zora, standing at the counter, tray held in both hands, saying nothing, not defending herself, not arguing, just standing there, absorbing it, the way you absorb something you've clearly absorbed many times before. His daughter, the girl who used to fall asleep on his chest during thunderstorms, the girl who read her first research paper out loud to him at their kitchen table, voice shaking on every third word, the girl who held his hand at her mother's funeral and whispered, "I've got you, Dad," like she was the parent and he was the child who needed steadying. That girl was standing in a lunch line, being told she didn't belong. Marcus stayed frozen for exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds is nothing in the normal rhythm of a day, but in a moment like this, 3 seconds is long enough to feel every year of your own childhood rise up behind your eyes. Long enough to remember your brother, your parents, every door that was ever shut in your face before you had the power to open it yourself. 3 seconds is long enough to decide, quietly and completely, exactly what kind of man you're about to be for the next 5 minutes. He looked around the room first. He needed the full picture before he moved. A line of students, phones already rising into the air. A young man near the front taking a half step forward, stopped by a small shake of Zora's head. Kitchen staff standing frozen, eyes fixed on the floor. The particular stillness of people who had seen this before and learned that speaking up only made things worse. And behind the counter, arms crossed, chin lifted, stood the woman responsible for all of it. Marcus crossed the cafeteria. His shoes made almost no sound against the floor. Years in the Marine Corps don't leave your body easily. You learn to move without announcing yourself. You learn that the most dangerous man in any room is rarely the loudest one. He stopped 3 feet from the counter, and he placed his hand gently on his daughter's shoulder. Zora flinched at the touch, then turned. Her eyes went wide. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Her voice cracked, just barely, the same crack from all those nights at the kitchen table. But this time it wasn't nerves about a research paper. It was something closer to shame. The kind that comes from being caught in a moment you've been hiding from the one person you love most in the world. Marcus looked at her. He didn't answer the question. Not yet. Instead, he turned toward the woman behind the counter. "Excuse me, I'm her father. I'd like to understand what's happening here." His voice was level. No heat in it. No volume. Just the calm, measured tone of a man who has sat across from senators and generals and never once needed to raise his voice to be heard. The woman looked at him, and this was the moment that mattered. This was the fork in the road, where everything could have gone differently. If she had simply said, "I'm sorry, there's been a misunderstanding." If she had handed the tray back and moved on with her afternoon, none of what came next would have happened. But she didn't. She looked at Marcus Reid the exact same way she'd been looking at his daughter. She saw a man with no tie, no entourage, none of the signals she'd spent 19 years learning to recognize as important. She saw a black man. And to her, that was the only information she needed. Sir, parents aren't permitted in the serving area. If you have questions about her financial situation, the financial aid office is upstairs. They open at 9. Financial aid. Marcus let the words settle for a moment before he spoke again. "I'm not here about finances. I'm here about the way you just spoke to my daughter." The woman uncrossed her arms and leaned forward, both palms flat against the counter. When she spoke again, her voice climbed louder, deliberately louder, performing now, not for Marcus, but for everyone else in that room who might question her authority later. "Sir, I don't appreciate your tone. We have standards here. We have systems, and I have run this dining hall for 19 years. So I suggest you lower your voice, collect your daughter, and leave quietly through the side door." Marcus didn't lower anything. He didn't raise anything either. "I'd like your name and title. Please. I'm making a formal inquiry." Something flickered across her face. The first small crack. "I don't have to give you anything. Then I'd like to speak to your supervisor." She laughed, short and dry. "Honey, I am the supervisor." She reached under the counter and pressed a button. A radio crackled to life, and she spoke into it with the exaggerated calm of someone who has already decided how this story is going to be told. "Security. I have an unidentified male in the serving area. Confrontational. Refusing to leave. I need assistance immediately." She set the radio down and smiled at Marcus. "Let's see how this goes for you." Less than a minute later, a campus security officer walked through the side door. She scanned the room fast, taking in Zora, standing rigid. Marcus with his hands visible at his sides. The dining director already crossing her arms again like she was posing for a photograph. Sir, can I see some identification? Marcus reached into his jacket slowly, deliberately, the way men who look like him learn, early and permanently, to move around anyone wearing a badge. He handed his license over without a word. The officer checked it, radioed it in. The response came back clean. No warrants, not even a parking ticket. He's clean, she said, half to herself. That doesn't mean anything. The woman snapped. Anyone can carry an ID. Look at him. Does he look like he belongs here? I saw him reach across the counter. I want his bag checked. The officer turned to Marcus, visibly uncomfortable now. Sir, would you mind if I looked in your bag? The whole cafeteria seemed to hold its breath. I do not consent to a search. Marcus said, there's no probable cause here. No warrant. This is my personal property. The officer nodded. Legally. She couldn't push further. And she knew it. But the woman behind the counter didn't care what the law said. She cared about winning. In 19 years, she had never lost a confrontation with someone who looked like Marcus Reid. And she wasn't about to start today. She came around the counter fast, grabbed the leather bag right off his shoulder, hard enough that the strap burned a line across his collarbone. Zora shouted, "Don't touch him." Too late. The bag was already open on the counter, its contents spilling out under the fluorescent lights for the entire room to see. A laptop, a leather folder, embossed in gold with the name of a company worth more than $4 billion, and a small bronze coin, the kind Marines carry for the rest of their lives. The woman turned the coin over once, like she was inspecting a cheap souvenir, and tossed it back onto the counter. It rang against the steel. Nothing here, she announced loudly, but that doesn't mean I trust him. Marcus picked up the coin in silence. He'd carried it the day his brother died, the day his daughter was born, the day he buried his wife. He slid it back into his pocket, and the only thing trembling was his hand. Every phone in that cafeteria was already up and recording. The woman wasn't finished. She positioned herself between Marcus and his daughter, arms spread wide across the counter like a human wall, and raised her voice, so it reached every corner of the room. I want everyone here to know I am acting in the interest of student safety. I do not feel safe with this man in my facility. Then she turned to Zora, pointing a gloved finger at her chest. Sit down. The adults are handling this. You should be grateful this university even lets you sit in this room at all. Grateful. The word hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot, as if Zora's seat in that cafeteria was a gift that could be taken back at any moment, as if her research paper, her test scores, her father's tuition check, all of it meant nothing next to the color of her skin. Zora didn't sit down. She didn't cry. She just stood there, perfectly still, something behind her eyes quietly breaking in a way that had nothing to do with volume. At a nearby table, an older professor who had been watching in silence finally stood, picked up his coffee, and walked out without a word. In the hallway, he made a single phone call. That call would matter. But not yet. Marcus turned to his daughter, his voice suddenly soft, fatherly, cutting through all the noise around them. I'm right here. Sweetheart, you did nothing wrong. Not one thing. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Zora nodded, lip trembling. Marcus pulled out his phone and typed 2 messages. Fast and precise. One to his legal counsel, one to the university's dean. Then he walked toward the hallway beside the security officer. And behind him, the woman straightened her apron, turned to a young kitchen worker who'd been staring at the floor the entire time, and said, loud enough for the whole room to hear, "Say, That's how you handle them. 19 years. Never failed. She had no idea how wrong she was. 15 steps down that hallway. The officer stopped and lowered her voice. Mr. Reid, between you and me, that was wrong. All of it. I knew it the second I walked in. Footsteps approached behind them. Zora had followed, along with a friend who'd been recording the entire time. Dad, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to think I couldn't handle it. But she does this every week. Not just to me. To every black student who uses the main line. There's no policy that says this. She made it up. Marcus looked at his daughter. And for the first time all day, his eyes went red. Not from anger, from the specific pain of realizing your child has been carrying something alone to protect you from worrying. At the end of the hallway, an elevator climbed open, and the dean stepped out. Face pale, hands shaking from whatever he'd just read on his phone. He looked at Marcus, the man he'd called his most important strategic partner just 3 hours earlier, and understood, in a single glance, that the ground beneath his career had just cracked open. What happened? He asked, his voice barely holding steady. The officer told him plainly. A cafeteria supervisor had denied a student her meal, accused her father of trespassing, and forcibly searched his belongings in front of hundreds of witnesses. The dean turned to Marcus, and for the first time since stepping off that elevator, he actually looked at him. Not at his badge, not at his title, at the man himself. Whatever happened down there does not represent this university. You were in a boardroom with me 3 hours ago, Marcus said quietly. You called me your most important partner. You showed me drawings of a building that will carry my late wife's name. And while you were pouring me coffee upstairs, to your employee was downstairs telling my daughter she should be grateful. You even let her sit in your cafeteria. The dean opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Here's what's going to happen. Marcus continued. We're going to walk back into that room together. You're going to address what happened in front of the same students who watched it. And your employee is going to be removed from this campus today. Not next week. They walked back together. The cafeteria was still full. Every tray untouched. Every conversation dead. The woman was behind the counter, humming, wiping down a station, looking like someone who believed the natural order had just been restored. Then she looked up, and she saw the dean, and right behind him, she saw the man she'd just thrown out of her cafeteria, walking calmly back into it. Mrs. Sullivan, the dean announced, his voice shaking but carrying across the entire room. This is Marcus Reid, founder and CEO of a $4 billion company, father of a student who pays full tuition at this university, and the man whose foundation is finalizing a $12 million endowment for this campus, along with the dining contract that currently pays your salary. Her smile collapsed. Slowly, like a building folding in on itself. You will apologize to Mr. Reid and his daughter, right now, and then you will come with me to my office, where you are suspended, effective immediately. By 2 o'clock that afternoon, a woman named Catherine Hall walked onto campus like a storm wrapped in a tailored suit. She was Reid Therapeutics' chief legal counsel, and Marcus had called her from that hallway less than 2 hours earlier. She didn't ask permission for anything. She simply presented a subpoena to the dean's office and got to work, along with a small forensic team that moved through the building like they'd done this 100 times before. They started with the cameras, 4 of them, mounted in the dining hall, running continuously for the past 4 months. Then they pulled the personnel file of the woman now sitting suspended in an empty conference room down the hall. Then they pulled every formal complaint filed against her over the past 8 years. A young analyst named Priya sat at a borrowed desk that evening, scrolling through complaint after complaint, and started reading them out loud to Catherine. Onabiwan, her voice growing quieter with each one. There's a complaint here from 3 years ago. A mother wrote 4 pages. She says her son transferred out after his 2nd semester because he couldn't eat in that cafeteria without being followed by security. Catherine leaned over her shoulder. Was there a response? Priya scrolled down. Stamped, received. Nothing after that. No follow-up. No investigation. Just filed. She found another. And another. 14 complaints in total. Spanning 8 years. Filed by Black and Latino students and their families. 11 had been buried without so much as a reply. 3 families said they never heard back at all. 5 of those students had eventually left the university altogether, citing hostile conditions in their exit interviews. Nobody had ever asked them why. But it was the meal plan data that made even Catherine go quiet. A systems administrator pulled up the database around midnight, and what he found looked less like a mistake and more like a pattern carved in stone. Over the past 3 years, dozens of Black and Latino students, all of them on full tuition, all of them paying in full for their meal plans, had been manually flagged in the system as scholarship or financial aid recipients. Not one white student had ever been reclassified that way. Not a single one. Zora's card, they discovered, had been flagged on her 3rd day on campus. There had never been a written policy. There had never been a memo, a directive, anything official. One woman had built this entire system by hand, one keystroke at a time, and nobody above her had ever bothered to look closely enough to notice. That evening, the young man who'd been filming everything in the cafeteria uploaded his footage online. He didn't add a caption. He didn't need to. The video spoke for itself. 11 minutes. Raw and unedited. And within 12 hours it had 6 million views. By the next morning, it had crossed 20 million. And a hashtag with the university's name was trending across the entire country. In a living room 3 states away, a woman named Denise Carter was scrolling through her phone late on a Wednesday night when the video appeared in her feed. She watched maybe 30 seconds of it before her stomach dropped, because she recognized that gloved finger, that exact gesture, pointing at a student's chest. 2 years earlier, her son Malik had been a sophomore at that same university. He'd been accused of stealing a meal card that was, in fact, his own. Security had escorted him out in front of his friends, and the incident had gone into his permanent record. Malik stopped eating in that cafeteria after that. He lost weight over the following 2 months. He transferred at the end of the semester and never told his mother the full story. Not until she called him that night. Video still paused on her screen and asked him gently what had really happened. By the end of that week, 6 more families had come forward. By the following week, 12. Marcus made exactly 1 public statement, and he kept it short. This was never about my daughter alone. This is about every student who was ever made to feel small in a place where they belonged. The story didn't fade. It grew. A local newspaper ran a 3-part investigation into 19 years of complaints and silence, and within days, national outlets had picked it up. The university's applications dropped sharply within 2 weeks. Donors quietly pulled their pledges. Students organized and demanded answers the administration had never planned to give. The dean resigned within the month. He didn't hold a press conference. He sent a single paragraph to the faculty by email late on a Sunday night. And by Monday morning, his office was empty. The university's board moved quickly after that. Within a week, they brought in an interim leader, a woman named Dr. Angela Wells, who had spent 3 decades working on equity in higher education. Her first act was ordering a full external audit of every department on campus. Her second act was simpler, but somehow it mattered more. She walked into the dining hall at lunchtime, sat down at a table near the window, and ate a tray of grilled chicken alongside a group of freshmen who had no idea, at first, who she was. The state attorney general's office opened a formal civil rights investigation soon after. The woman at the center of it all, The one who had spent 19 years believing her authority in that cafeteria was untouchable, was charged with assault for seizing Marcus's bag by force, and with unlawful restraint for physically blocking his daughter's access to the counter. The charges carried an enhancement. Once prosecutors laid out the 8-year pattern the forensic team had uncovered, this hadn't been one bad afternoon. It had been a system. On the day of the trial, the courtroom was full before 9 in the morning. Reporters lined the back wall. Denise Carter sat near the front, her son Malik beside her, his hand resting quietly on the bench between them. The woman took the stand in her own defense. She said she didn't see color. She said she only saw behavior. She said, more than once, that she had simply been misunderstood. Then the prosecution played the recordings, not just from that Tuesday, but clips pulled from years of archived footage. Her voice catching on camera again and again. The same tone, the same gesture, aimed at different faces who all happened to share one thing in common. After that, they played the full 11 minutes from the cafeteria, start to finish. And nobody in that courtroom moved the entire time. The jury returned a verdict in under 3 hours. Guilty on every count. The sentence included 2 years of supervised probation, mandatory completion of a civil rights education program, a permanent ban from any position involving students or minors, and full restitution to every family whose complaint had once been buried and forgotten. Before closing the case, the judge spoke directly to her, and her words were quiet, but they carried to every corner of the room. What you did was not policy. It was cruelty, practiced for 19 years, and protected by an institution that chose comfort over justice. That silence ends today. In the gallery, Denise didn't clap when the verdict was read. She just took her son's hand, held it a little tighter, and said softly, 19 years too late. A separate civil case, filed on behalf of 12 families, settled for nearly $16 million through the university's insurance. A smaller judgment, personal and permanent, was entered against the woman herself. None of it brought back the semesters Malik had lost, or the meals Zora had eaten alone with her eyes on the exit door. But for the first time in 19 years, somebody had finally been made to answer for it. 6 months later, that same cafeteria looked like an entirely different place. New artwork lined the walls, photographs and paintings representing every culture on campus. A banner hung near the entrance that read, simply, "Every seat belongs to everyone." The kitchen staff had changed almost entirely, and a new director named Elena Vasquez had been brought in from outside the university. She learned every student worker's name within her first week on the job, and she started a monthly tradition she called Family Friday, where parents were invited to eat lunch alongside their kids. No appointment necessary, just a tray and a seat at the table. The university opened a permanent office of equity and inclusion, staffed full-time, and mandatory training became part of every employee's onboarding. No exceptions. Dr. Wells, confirmed as permanent vice president of student affairs, rewrote the staff conduct handbook from the first page to the last. Zora didn't stop at watching the changes happen around her. She helped build them. Along with a few friends, she started a mentorship program called Open Table, pairing incoming freshmen, especially first-generation students and students of color, with upperclassmen who could walk them through everything from finding the right dining hall to knowing exactly how to file a complaint if something ever went wrong again. By the end of its first semester, the program had grown to more than 60 mentors. The Family Foundation finalized its endowment on new terms, larger than originally planned, funding 50 full scholarships for students from underserved communities, renewable every year, carrying Vivian's name permanently into the university's future. Malik reapplied and was accepted back. On his first day returning to campus, Zora was waiting for him at the entrance of the dining hall with a mentor badge and a tray already set out at a table by the window. The young man who'd filmed that original video went on to lead the campus's Black Student Union. He never took the footage down. By then, it had been watched more than 40 million times. On a quiet Friday afternoon that October, Marcus stood near the back of that same cafeteria. Same floor, same lights humming overhead. But everything else about the room felt different now. The energy was different. The faces behind the counter were different. Across the room, Zora sat surrounded by friends of every background, laughing so hard at something that one of them knocked over a carton of juice. And without missing a beat, she grabbed a napkin and cleaned it up herself. Elena walked over and asked if he'd like to join the line for Family Friday. "Grilled chicken today," she said. Smiling, Marcus picked up a tray and stood in line like every other parent in the room. He could have handled all of this differently. Written a check, pulled his daughter out, let the lawyers manage it from a comfortable distance and never set foot in that building again. Instead, he kept showing up, week after week, Friday after Friday. Because showing up is what actually changes a place. Not money, not power, not headlines. Presence. Dignity is not something a student should ever have to earn by having the right parents, the right last name, or the right bank account behind them. People like Patricia Sullivan don't survive for 19 years because they're powerful. They survive because everyone around them stays quiet. The co-workers who look away instead of speaking up. The officers who follow orders without asking a single hard question. The administrators who bury a complaint because addressing it is simply inconvenient. But here's what this story proves. Over and over again. The moment just one person refuses to stay silent, the entire system starts to crack. You don't need a $4 billion company to stop a Patricia. You don't need a title, or a helicopter, or a boardroom full of trustees who already know your name. You need a phone, a witness, and the simple willingness to say, out loud, in the room where it's happening, that is not okay. So here's my question for you. If you had walked into that cafeteria as a total stranger, if you'd heard what Marcus heard the second he opened that door, what would you have done? Would you have spoken up, stepped forward, pulled out your phone and started recording? Or would you have told yourself, quietly, that it wasn't your business? Be honest with yourself for a second, because somewhere out there, right now, there's another cafeteria, another counter, another kid standing in a line, being told in some quiet, cruel way that they don't belong. The only question left is who's going to be standing in that doorway when it happens. Drop your honest answer in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if this story hit you somewhere real, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because the next Patricia is already out there.